Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to look you in the eye or even off to the side and tell you, hey, this is the biggest weekend of the year. No, it's not. We haven't even started SEC play yet. But I will tell you this. I got several final thoughts on games. Some we've talked about, some we haven't. And I think we need to dive into it. This is a very underrated Saturday in the ACC. I'm also not going to insult your intelligence and suggest to you that the winner of Miami-Louisville coming out of this thing is a real threat to Clemson. Hey, Georgia Tech, if they pull off that upset, and it would be a home point spread upset over UCF, hey, they may be a contender. They may be a dark horse. They're not necessarily in that context. But I want you to understand, these games like Miami-Louisville, let's start talking about that one since I'm already on it. These games like Miami-Louisville, this stuff matters beyond 2020. There is not a finish line to this season where the importance of some of these outcomes and the subsequent recruiting momentum you may get off of it just ceases to exist. This stuff matters 2020 and beyond. So we already broke this game down. If you missed the game breakdown and prediction, it is on the YouTube channel in its own individual video. But there are some really interesting dynamics in play here. I'll tell you the first one is it's a really big test for Miami secondary. And for that matter, facing this Louisville offense is going to be a test for any secondary in America. They are down, obviously, a premier defensive lineman in Greg Rousseau. They still got the horses there. I think they can be very disruptive. On the flip side, offensively for Miami, Rhett Lashley, I think there is kind of an internal struggle when Miami looks at this game of understanding we want to incorporate tempo in our offense. That was one of the things that they stressed the moment Rhett Lashley walked in the building. Our offense was anemic last year. It had no life to it. It was so boring to watch for us on the sideline. It had to be boring to watch in the stands and at home. And so you know that, and you want to do better, and you brought in De'Aaron King, and you hope that you have that infusion of talent necessary to do it. But at the same time, how does that line up with the best way for Miami to go about winning this football game? Because I'm not so sure running 95 plays or attempting to is the best approach for them here. They got the size and physicality advantage. They probably have the athletic advantage. It's Louisville that wants to turn this into a track meet. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if you don't see kind of somewhat of a pause button put on that whole incorporation of tempo and try and go basketball on grass from Miami. Cameron Harris, guys like that, that offensive line needs to stand up this week. They need to use the advantages they have. Now, the pick on this game that we had was Miami straight up, and so we took Miami plus the points. We think the wrong team's favored here. We think their ability to disrupt up front is going to be plenty enough to cause some problems and eventually a few mistakes on the Louisville side of things. That, and we think they have an edge in special teams. So we took Miami straight up and obviously took a couple of points if they want to charitably give those to us. Now, we have not broken down the Georgia Tech game. They are playing host to UCF. Excited, very excited am I to watch this. Jeff Sims hype, it's off the charts in Atlanta. I think soon enough in his career it'll be off the charts nationally. It sparked last week. There were sparks. Okay, Jeff Sims didn't have, like a vintage Baker Mayfield, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow type game, but he showed promise. He made some terrible mistakes, but he made some great plays and showed a lot of promise to where you said, wow, that guy's going to be good. How quickly is he going to be really good? Like, that's the question. Ideally, it would be this week. They are a 7.5-point underdog at home, or the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This is UCF's first game. And remember, UCF had a significant amount of guys opt out. So they're dealing with those first game unknowns just like everyone else has faced. And they had guys opt out, and that affected their two deep in several different positions. And when you consider the style of play, what's the identity, hopefully, of UCF? A lot of timing, a lot of rhythm. Everything needs to operate in sync, and that's not always what we saw in the first week of the season for most P5s last week. So you got a G5 here, albeit one at the very top of the mountain. Do they come out firing? I think you'll know pretty early on in this one. We're going to have a play on this game, by the way. It's going to be one of our 5 officials. It's going to be a total. My opinion on the side here is few too many points for Tech. I believe that when you talk about tempo, you talk about dictating terms very early on. If they can take the old crowbar to the shin, which I think they'll be able to do and ugly that game up quite a bit, that's Georgia Tech's game. And if they do, that total's sitting there at 63. Don't know if it gets close to 63. That's a big if. So we're kind of hedging there, and I'll tell you about it more later on. How about Houston at Baylor? This is not an ACC game, but we didn't talk about this one either. Baylor opened at around a touchdown favorite. They've since dropped that thing to about 4.5. So someone loves Houston out there. Dave Aranda debuts as head coach with the Baylor Bears. I have a little clue what to expect there. I will say this. Houston's defense, they're very excited about the transfers they got in, but that's just it. I got a whole lot of transfers whole lot of transfer pieces, and they're trying to incorporate them specifically in the defensive secondary. So remains to be seen there for Houston. The potential there is really good for them to have nice balance offensively. But the thing about it is, I could say the same thing for Baylor with Charlie Brewer, John Lovett, guys like that. And so you got a retooled, talented with the infusion of transfers, but retooled secondary with Houston. Don't necessarily know if I like the matchup, experience at quarterback versus a retooled secondary there. So we lean because of that towards Baylor, and we actually lean towards Baylor to cover. So whoever loves Houston there, we've kind of been on the opposite side of that one. Those are our Week 3 final thoughts.